So now it's time to talk about factions, and this will probably be my favorite video because factions are probably one of the coolest things about Tower of God. I think we all can agree, like joining a different family or even like a rogue group. It's like such a cool concept because there's so many different characters within it since, the tower has been around for literally thousands and thousands of years. So they've built up their strength. There's different levels to who's who. There's a bunch of different cool groups that are involved throughout the season. So we're going to talk about each group, how they were affected, what I expect from them going forward, and also how they finish season 3. So the factions I'm going to talk about are Zahard's Empire, and you know that Zahard's Empire is kind of like the big group, and under the umbrella is the 10 great families. So you can kind of put them under there, but I'm not going to talk about like all of them. I'm just going to talk about like the Zahard Empire. Po Bia will be a separate faction that I will talk about because they have some very interesting things, obviously with Traumari's death. Po Bidau family, Fug, the new group, the revolutionaries, and last but not least, Walki Song. With those being the groups, I think the first one to talk about is the newest one, which is the revolutionaries. Now, they are in a very controversial state right now because people do not like the Revs, okay? People did not like how they finished. They kind of ran between the tail and their legs with Urek hunting them. And to be fair, guys, like, I think you guys are a little bit too critical of them because it's Urek Manzino. Like, bro, like, what are we doing here? Like, he is, like, literally the top guy next to Zahard. Of course, you're gonna run from him. Like, I get that these people are claiming to be the new family heads, but they aren't there yet. Like, obviously, they didn't plan to fight him, so maybe they weren't necessarily ready to deal with a threat like that. If you're making the claims that you're making, being, we're gonna take over the 10 family heads, then you need to have that level of strength and be ready for stuff like that. I am going to come a little bit of slack with, like, them being actually hunted by him is kind of insane. And yeah, anybody would be caught off guard if that guy attacked you all of a sudden. So the revolutionaries, if you need just a quick refresher, are a group of people who want to replace the 10 family heads, okay? And apparently within this group, there's possibly a member of every family in this group. So for example, you can kind of say that Macheni is kind of a part of the revolutionaries because we saw her interact with the boss and they kind of seemed like they came together with a plan for something. Also, that like Kieran's a part of it, and a couple Po Bia members who also seem to be kind of a part of it. So there seem to be maybe different people from different families that are also within, from families we haven't seen yet. So possibly another Kun family member, maybe a Ha family member, maybe two Perry. Like we don't know. Obviously, we haven't explored the rest of the families, but there is a possibility of that. Now, the major group that's kind of running things are the people from the Red Dump. And if you haven't seen my Red Dump theory video, please look up at the card right here. Check it out next if you would like to see it. People from the Red Dump seem to be the ones at the forefront for the time being. So just a quick refresher on the Red Dump people. The Red Dump was the space that was locked by the 10 family heads where they dumped a bunch of people, memories, beings, all type of stuff into this locked box. And this box is supposedly, if you haven't read the translations from Webtoon, it's the space in between floors. So if you think about, climbing up a step, look in between your step, that space is kind of where you could think that there's a hidden group in there, okay? So that's where they dumped and locked a bunch of people in, and that was the whole point of the bracelet that Mustang stole off the Hell train from the data floor, got Rachel to bring to him, was to unlock the people from the Red Dump. And we don't know the whole history behind how that happened. Did he actually release them? We don't know any and all of that stuff yet. But those are the people who are kind of at the forefront because we got to see them on the battlefield. So the first approach that we got from the revolutionaries, if you guys don't remember, is from Po Bia Yule. Okay, remember Po Bia Yule, and he came with the machine face kind of guy. They approached Bomb real early in season 3, okay? Yule attacked Bomb, trying to test him, and Bomb packed him up real easy. That's what Yule said. He had a couple friends that he had hostage. You gotta let me basically help you or follow you around because I've kind of been ordered to do this. And going forward, then we kind of see them help Kun and Bomb's group, with the Yama stuff. And then the next interaction I believe we get is we get to see a flashback of the boss. So the boss is seen talking to Darwin all the way back in Genesis, telling her about Bomb. So this is one of the coolest things about like the boss that we know about, is that he seems to have been around for a long time. So this is what I mean, where we don't know how long the people from the Red Dump have been out. If some of them like slipped through or escaped, we don't actually know. But he's been around for a long time, and he actually gave Darwin the news about like Bomb and being sealed and what the proper plan was. He also talked to Cha the same way. So the revolutionaries isn't necessarily a new group. They have just kind of been hidden in the shadows, kind of like how Thug has, but we know that Thug's a little bit more public. But the Revs, like, their existence hasn't been known, and it has only been officially confirmed like in this season. So from then on, of course, we see the boss in the suspendium running with the snake hatchling. He got packed easy by the boss, and they were there to assist Bomb on getting Leviathan out. Now, y'all, if you haven't seen my stuff, y'all should know that how I feel about Leviathan and how weird it was that Leviathan wasn't necessarily used in the overall plot of Traumary's death. Kind of seems just like a buff right now, which I don't necessarily like. We're not going to get into that, but he was there to help basically get Leviathan out. And of course, before that, we do see the interaction between Machete and the boss, as I mentioned before, and I don't necessarily remember if or whatever they talked about. And I know it wasn't shown, but I don't know if we necessarily got to see anything there that we could foresee that may have been mentioned to Machete that would have maybe preluded to the war or anything. But I don't think there was anything there for us to like make any assumption. Now, jumping completely forward, now we get the revolutionaries kind of, you know, interacting in between the stuff in the war, because we know Kieran's a part of it, but we didn't learn that until Kieran betrayed his family and kind of tried to capture a bomb and failed. And then we move on to the actual Po Bia war. They all kind of expose themselves. We get to see the boss in this armor, which I know a lot of people like. I didn't think it was that cool, but we get to see him. And then we get to see some new members later, you know, either further on in the season towards the end. The girl using electricity, the girl with the plug, Lady Ratna Gra, who seems to be one of the people who wants to replace the family heads. Then we have the astronaut guy who seemed to cut Lobadan's tree bark open with no problem. We're getting to see a couple of the revolutionaries, like the top brass. Now, the sad part is that they got completely like sideswiped and, you know, completely shit on by Urek, who shows up on the battlefield and immediately chases them. And they had like a very, very good effect on the war, because they were like a third faction that kind of got involved and like didn't necessarily pick a side and were doing damage to everybody. And, you know, power scaling them, we can kind of infer that at the least corpse commander level, because of the way they handle with Yama. So Yama gets his buff, and now he's, you know, at the top of his game. And Yama's like destroying, you know, Prowse's lighthouse shield. And then that's when they had the, you know, the electricity girl, you know, who one-tapped Darwin. If we're talking about like the grunt soldiers, kind of the plug and electricity girl, I would kind of rank them at maybe branch head or stronger, but I would give them a little grace to say a little bit stronger. So the group overall seems to be made up of a bunch of different people, and I liked their showing until like they had to kind of run away, because I mean, they're getting hunted by the top guy. They made a good showing. I think they made a pretty good impression. You know, obviously they're planning in their plots, because, you know, we found out that Ratna Gra actually knew about Yama, so they know about people. They seem to be very prepared for wherever they're going. So I gotta give them a little bit of credit there. Do I expect to see them in the future? Absolutely. Like the boss or the captain, who was able to kind of tell the future, which we have no idea how, in what way he can do that. But anybody with that type of ability is obviously a threat. If his is on the same level as Zahard's, because he's supposedly a Zahard clone, then it's a big problem. But it's kind of hard to tell, because towards the last chapter, we get to see that they actually get hunted down, and wherever they teleported to, Zahard's army is waiting. So that's one of the most exciting things to see, you know, when season 4 comes back, because the Revs got cut off to wherever they were going by Zahard's army, and we don't know what corpse that is, but there's a massive fleet waiting for them, and there might be a scrap going on there. So as far as season 4 goes, I think we absolutely get to see a lot more of the revolutionaries. There are people implanted in different families. We get to see them. I don't think wherever Zahard's crew that popped up to stop them or whatever, I don't think they're going to be the ones to stop them, because I think they have a much larger role to play. As far as the Revs go, they were basically introduced to us this season. I think they are a nice, not even third party, because I kind of put Walki Song as a third party, but they're a nice like fourth or fifth party group that kind of exists, and they're still new to us. So Thug has had a very up and down season, and I hate to say it because I really do like Thug, but people have had some harsh criticism, and it's because of the Slayers, okay? The Slayers have not been slaying. Yama, I think, looked good towards the end of the season. Karaka never popped back up after getting diffed by Dumas. And then all we really had after that was kind of Leslek, who carried. I mean, we should be making a meme about Leslek on how he carried his faction. Like, it's absolutely insane how he put them on his back and saved the reputation of Thug. Then we also got introduced to a number of elders this season, which have been really cool to see. Obviously, Kel Helm, Sophia, and then Garnek more towards where we get introduced to Leslek. These are all like really cool elders and seem to be really strong, especially Garnek. I think we kind of slept on him a little bit because he did diff a Po Bia branch head just like with no problem, with no issue. So at the very least, he's got to be past or in the middle of maybe Corpse Commander level. But just going through Thug's interactions this season, obviously Bomb is kind of like his own little thing within Thug, but Karaka and Bomb are the ones who approached Baylord Yama in the first arc to get Yama to help them attack and go save Hajin Song. So Thug is kind of like intricate early on in the season with Karaka, and I actually like Karaka early on because he's really like in it with Bomb. They're really trying to go rescue Jin Song. They're getting to know each other. They're getting to work together. And then this kind of turns into like a Thug beef in a way because Kel Helm pops up. And I like Kel Helm. I think his ability is really cool. He not only tell the future, but to teleport people. Obviously, Bomb stole the ability, and it's become a real useful ability to Bomb now. But I thought that Kel Helm was like not a terrible character, and I know he kind of gets a bad rap because he got played by Zahard. Like, because Kel Helm can tell the future, but Zahard can tell it to a way greater scale. So he manipulated Kel Helm's future sight himself, but it's Zahard. Like, if Zahard didn't exist, Kel Helm's ability would be OP as shit. But it's Zahard. So, and granted, I love Zahard. I cut Kel a little bit of slack. He didn't necessarily believe in Bomb and Yama, and he wanted to use the forces for his own needs. He came around using his future sight to kind of teleport Yama to the wall of peaceful coexistence, and that's kind of how the arc kind of transformed into the next arc. And then he becomes an important piece to helping Bomb and them when they go rescue Jin Song. And then you go look at the people who are involved in the first defensive wall. It's a bunch of Thug people. Like, you have the elders, you have people who are also extended. We obviously get to see Sophia Tan step in. After Bomb beat that ranker, people started to have faith within Thug, so they were willing to help Bomb. And I thought that was kind of cool, being that Bomb had a lot of circulation and doubt around him. Was he this strong? Is he actually for Thug? And we know he's not, but this all plays into the overall plot towards the end of the season, and which is why I think, like, early on, it's really cool to see, because Leslek is, but we don't even know about Leslek there at that point, but he's in the background, and obviously he's just letting shit happen, right? A couple things that did happen throughout the season are a little bit shaky, because there seems to be a little bit of a connection between Thug and the revolutionaries. I don't know if you guys necessarily agree with that, but we see Jin Song, when they go to rescue Bomb in the hotel, Jin Song makes contact with Garuru, who is also, involved with the revolutionaries. Now, we also get to see, towards the latter end, the reason why, like, the Revs kind of escape is kind of that Leslek got involved. Do you guys think that there's a connection there? Like, do you think, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing? Or do you think that they kind of just, like, link together for certain situations? I'm kind of peeping that I'm not exactly sure. That's just a point I just literally thought of. But you guys let me know if you think like Fug and like the Revs may low-key be working together. And just going back, we did get to meet some new members of Fug besides the Elders. Robbie, who was in the hotel arc, is a Fug member, and she was very helpful to Bomb to helping him escape, obviously in connection with Jin Song. And I do like her character, so I do hope we get to see her again. Then we kind of transform into the book part. Now, the book part is a little bit wonky because Fug seems to be trying to get the book. And I don't know if they're just going to use it as like a bargaining tool against Gustang. That part, I don't necessarily understand why they were so involved in it, right? Because it was Po Bia versus Fug in that moment. Like, Fug is trying to steal the book and kind of use it. Now, I don't know what this means. Maybe Lustlike takes it and gets information from it. Have you guys ever thought about that? Like, I know a lot of you who think deeply within the plot, we don't notice these things, like, but this is the reason why we do reviews and that we look back at things. Jin Song, Yama, Karaka, then Kel Helen popped up with I forget the Red Witch girl that he's with. They all kind of got into a fight with Dumas and Richmond to get the book. So I wonder what the goal for Fug there was. I'm not exactly sure, but do you think that maybe it was just going to be a bargaining chip for Lustlike? Speaking of the man Lustlike, so this is where Fug basically becomes the Lustlike show, okay? Lustlike starts to carry his team on his back. Now, obviously the biggest thing, Lustlike versus Urek. Fantastic fight. I love Lustlike's character. I like his fighting style. Everything is cool about the man. Then, you know, he kind of disappears after they fight, and we don't see him for a little while, and then he pops back up in the key moment where Urek is getting directly involved in the war. Then also, when Bomb transforms into V, he's already there, like, waiting and understanding what's going on. Oh, that looks like my master. Master, let's go. We're getting out of here. Takes Bomb's back with Fug. It's looking like, and everybody's been saying it, big brain energy Lustlike. He's been waiting for the moment where Bomb is going to get stimulated, Omega pause, but to the point where V's going to come out. And V comes out, and now Lustlike is like, oh, I've been waiting for this moment for you to pop up so that you can come with me, and I can help you, like, hone and train on this new body. But that's the whole weird thing where V going to take over Bomb's body. Is Bomb going to get trained by his father to take over his own body? Is Bomb going to get convinced to work for Fug? Like, we don't know what those things led to. The biggest thing is that Lustlike accomplished his goal, because not only did, you know, a family head die, which is what his master wanted to see. Traumarate did die, even though he didn't cause it, but it happened. He got his master back. Like, V's here. Like, we know that he exists. Like, Lustlike is a big W. Now, going into season 4, I don't necessarily know we get to see from Fug. You know, obviously we have the secretary girl who doubts Bomb, so we'll get to see some stuff there. Discovering that Bomb has somebody else within him. It's a little weird interaction there. Lustlike's next move is Bomb going to get taught by his father? Like, it's a lot going on within Fug right now. Their whole goal, you know, is to defeat the 10 family heads, and one is dead. So you can say that they accomplished their goal, no matter which way it kind of came about. But other than that, for season 4, obviously Fug is going to be deeply involved. We're going to get to see the inner workings now. Now that we've been introduced to Lustlike, obviously, V is now a part of, like, Bomb. So we'll get to see what Bomb's doing within Fug. I think if anybody took a W during this war and during this whole season, Fug has, like, may have started slow with, obviously, their Slayer's not doing too well, but they ended on a very, very strong note. So we already know season 4 is going to go hard for them. Po Bidau. A lot of people don't like this family because they're kind of bookwords, they're nerds, and it kind of turns out that a lot of them aren't actually real people. They're scriptures or whatever, and you can have your opinions about that. That's fine. But I like Po Bia. I think they accomplished their goal as well, and they took a big W. Now, obviously, towards the end, losing their mothership is not a W, and we'll get to that stuff, but overall, they did manage to defeat Lobopia, and with Traumarate's pass. Already met Gustang since season 2. Good luck. Gustang has been slowly trickling in, helping with things as far as the Floor of Death, getting involved with Rachel with the Treasure Stingray. He has already been a part of the story since the workshop. Getting to see the inside of his family is one of the coolest things, that we got to see, because they really are just a bunch of people who read, who have libraries on every corner. Like, I liked seeing the interaction with his family. And then we get to see, you know, how they kind of get galvanized for war. We don't really get to see that from Traumary's side, and this is why I say Lobo Pia was a bit kind of lacking. We get to see Gusting literally tell his family, we're going to war against Lobo Pia. Let's get it. We gonna tell the truth. Like, it's a hype moment. I love seeing that. We don't get that from Traumary, and that's kind of like when we get into like the character of Gusting and Traumary and how they treat their families. That's what I meant. And if you haven't seen the character video, check out the card here. But this is what I mean when we talk about how these two run their families. We get introduced to Belair around this time that we're getting to see their mothership and stuff. And early on, Belair seems like a cool character. He seems like, oh, this guy might be kind of strong. He seems smart, calculated. He's working with Rachel. Belair ultimately, to me, turns out to be a pretty much of a huge disappointment. But early on, at the very least, he seemed like a cool character, right? And then obviously we have the standouts in the Po Bidau family, the Dumases of the world, the Michaels, the Prouses, like the top brass. We get to see, you know, not all of them necessarily fight. I would have loved to see more of Michael's ability. The way he put down Hugo was kind of like really small, little, no effort. So I would have loved to see his abilities. We didn't get to see enough from Prouse, and Prouse might even be dead based on the last chapter. So we don't even know what's going on if we'll see that scripture. And then obviously, I think the biggest hit out of all the Po Bidau members was Tiara. I think everybody pretty much likes, or at least a majority likes, the Tiara. She's a really cool psychotic character who also could really scrap with or without her pen. She was giving people the business, and the hope right now in the community is that she comes back. If she doesn't, boo. But they made out really good in the war efforts as well. Prousing the army, they were pretty much holding it down. They had no problem when they came across the branch heads and seemed to have beat all the Lobo Pia branch heads within the area and then capturing them, and that's how Belair used them within the Killing Chess Piece game. The middle of the war, when they're going against Robodon and crew and the Revs, it don't seem like Po Bidau was really doing much at that point. Prouse is like involved, but this is where I thought we would see more Prouse character, but we never really got to see it, especially when Urek popped up. Things kind of, you know, shit hit the fan. Obviously, Gustang, their family head, ultimately, after everything that happened, came out on top, and it resulted in Traumary's death. Despite what you may say about Gustang and his fighting style, whatever, overall, he won the war. Po Bidau did win the war because it ended with the Lobo Pia family branch head dying. That's a big W for them. Now, things get tricky when Zahard's army now gets involved, with Adori popping up and seemingly destroying the mothership. Seemingly has no problem with facing off against Gustang. I don't think it's that simple personally, but I know people, they see something as cool as that, and it's a massive moment, so she gets a W. It's making Po Bidau kind of have like a little bit of an L, or maybe a big L towards the end of the season, like the very last chapter. But in season 4, I think we kind of get away from Po Bidau a little bit. I think we'll see a little bit of Gustang and his interaction. We don't know if he's going to be talking to Kun anymore, because obviously they had to escape the mothership. I think he still will be a part of the story, just we won't get to see a lot of his family anymore. So sad and sucks to say that we won't get to see a lot of Dumas, even though he's like a crowd favorite right now, but it's what it is. Now, Lobo Pia. Lobo Pia has kind of been the family that has been in our faces, not only just in season 3, because they were in season 2, but they've been in our faces for a while, okay? I think this family right now is the coolest family in terms of power and abilities. Being an Anima is probably like really one of the coolest things. Like, and this is why, like, the biggest gripe I had with season 3 is that we didn't get to meet the actual, like, Lobo Pia mothership. We don't get to see how the family structures actually work, how they live, how the city works, like we got to see in Po Bidau. We didn't get to see that. So that's like probably one of my biggest gripes about this faction and how they were written. Now, we did get to meet a bunch of members of Lobo Pia. There are tons of them in Zahard's army. We got to see them really early on at the first defensive wall, because a bunch of them are within Zahard's army. You know, obviously, Yas Ratcha, a couple of people in his group, and then you had Spider Mommy, and then Owl, and the big wing bird. Like, we're getting to see all different types of branch heads and powers between Lobo Pia, and it's really all cool. Like, they really, like, with their coolness and their abilities, did carry a lot of the boringness of the Cat Tower. But, and this is one thing that everybody was talking about at the time, they were losing. They were losing in the cat tower. Obviously, the wingboard guy got defeated. Now, Spider Mommy didn't lose, but people below her lose a lot. Yas Ratcha's people died. Yas Ratcha obviously died in the end, and he wasn't necessarily a part of Lobopia, but they did lose a lot of people. Obviously, Pooh Diddy, they lost branch heads, they lost hatchlings who got caught by Po Bia, who murdered the hatchlings, and like Holland ended up being an L. Like, they were just taking L's everywhere. Then it didn't get any better as we get into the war with Kieran's betrayal. Kieran betraying his brothers and sisters, who ended up getting, some of them get slaughtered by Po Bia after he teleported, and then some got captured. And then obviously Dumas come running into some of them in the Killing Chesapeake's game, killing them. Like, Lobopia was just taking L after L after L, bro. It was like the biggest L streak I think I've ever seen from a faction. And this is when I was saying, if you go back and watch my reviews, I know you won't, but I was saying that the writing is kind of on the wall for Traumary. Remember, guys, I was saying this, and I'm not saying I made a massive prediction, like I stuck on it all season, but a couple of you agreed that like the writing was on the wall for Lobopia because they're losing a ton of members. They're losing all type of branch heads, all type of hatchlings, which is their future branch heads. Like will Traumary survive this? And I know the feeling of it doesn't feel that way because we know that Traumary doesn't care about his family. So maybe that feeling kind of leaked on to us a bit because we know that Traumary kind of experiments and makes new things and stuff. We never actually knew if we would actually see him die. Some people, even myself, we started to think that maybe him and Gusting may come around and, get together or anything like that. But no, Lobopia just lost tons of military might, and then they lost their family. Some of the cool stuff about Lobopia towards the end is that Robodon comes to take Traumary's body. We think he maybe wants to take it back to the mothership, maybe bury him, give him all his send-offs. Robodon's army gets stopped by Zahard's army, which appears to be Lybolic's army at the in the last chapters. We have no idea what that's about. Now, I said I think that they've come to take Traumary's body. What can you do with Traumary's body? I don't know. Maybe you could reanimate it. Maybe you can extract some powers and memories from it. There's tons of stuff that could happen with a corpse of a regular. Like, there's so many things that could be possibly done. Like, maybe the friends just wanted, maybe the 8, they just wanted to bury it and just to see the evidence of what happened. I can see a skirmish happening where Robodon's not giving that body up. Now, if Lybolic and crew says that Zahard wants you to come back and we want to hear your side of the story, what happened at the war, what happened to Traumary, how did he die, examine the body, I could see that happening. But if it comes to a point where there is Lybolic is basically demanding Robodon to give over the body, I could see Robodon not doing it and giving that man, like, whooping Lybolic's ass, bro. So I think Lobopia has a very interesting future because they lost a lot of people, a lot of their future strength. Obviously, they still have the princesses, the twin girls or whatever, but at the very least, this seems like Lobodon's family at this point. As far as season 4 goes, I think we still get to see the twin princesses. I think we'll get to see like the aftermath of Lobopia, what happens to them, what happens to the mothership and stuff. But I don't think they'll be like as involved as like, say, Augustine may be down the line because obviously their family is dead. But I guess we'll see, right? So now, last but not least is Zahard's army, okay? And Zahard's army, we knew that we weren't going to get to see most of them. Now, Adori popping up at the end, total shocker. Caught everybody off guard. Love it. Good content. But we knew that they weren't necessarily going to get involved in the war. Now, talking about Zahard's army early on, Zahard's army are the ones who were coupled with Lobopia people who fought not only at the Wall of Peaceful Coexistence, but they also fought at the first and second defensive wall. Lybolic and Caliban was a part of that, and the armies that fought to keep Fug out. These people, while they have Zahard's name at the end because they're within his family's army, they weren't really like the people that like I really wanted to see within Zahard's army. But I'm saying that like we wanted to see like the Adoris of the world, right? We wanted to see all the princesses of the world, right? Because especially after Yuri made that crazy comment that we can't forget, that all the princesses in Zahard's army can take out the 10 family heads. One of the craziest statements of season 3. I think we all can all agree about that, right? Insane statement by her. I still don't believe it. Ever since then, like me, I've been wanting to see a little bit more of Zahard's army. Now we get into Adori. Adori is a part of the Ari family. I don't think any of us really expected that. We never really got anything on her background. You know that she has the Golden November, one of the strongest blades as far as going on to this season 4. I think we do get to see a lot more of the princesses within Zahard's army, the ones that are really, really involved. Obviously, Machete has been weird this entire season. She helped bomb. She was working with the boss in them. So we know that she's a little bit of war hungry. She wants chaos in the tower. She says this herself. The fact that we got introduced to Maria at the end also can mean that we're getting into the princesses, like the ones who really like have important roles within families and within Zahard's army, all who have different goals. We maybe even get to learn more about Ann Dorsey. So I think season 4 will be a lot about that. I also think in season 4 we get to see Zahard and the rest of the 10 family heads, or excuse me, the 8 family heads. We get to see them talk about Traumary's death, what happened in the war, how they proceed, bomb, everything. So we have to get that. I think we absolutely have to get that. And if we don't, I'll be massively disappointed. But yeah, that's all I have for Zahard's army. So I said last but not least, but I almost forgot Walki Song. So Walki Song is it's going to be a very short portion, because Walki Song, we didn't get necessarily see the group. The only involvement that we had from them is Urek. Urek tells us early on when we get to see him, he is hunting a certain group. Now, we don't know who this group is. At this point, we're not really aware of the revolutionaries when he tells us this. Bayek Ryuk wants him to go hunt the revolutionaries. Now, Urek fails, okay? We know that he fails. He's not weak. He didn't get his ass beat or anything like that. It's just that he got stopped and hindered by Leslie. And he didn't necessarily do anything to the Revs. They get away, and we know that they run into Zahard's army, so we don't know what's going to happen to them. But he also failed to stop Traumary's death, because Urek says that he doesn't want any of the 10 family heads to die. He wants things to work out, because he knows that if somebody dies, the power balance gets upset, and then there's going to be war and chaos everywhere. He doesn't accomplish that goal either. So Walki Song right now, they're looking like L's, okay? They didn't accomplish anything. You could blame Urek for it. You could blame Leslek for it. Whatever you say, the guy who's supposed to be the 4th strongest guy ever to enter the tower is looking bad. So Walki Song, L, that's all I can really say about them. But if I'm ranking the groups in the factions from best to worst, right now at the top is Fug. Fug accomplished their goals with no problem. They came out good. They got bombed. They got a death of a family head. W. Number 2 would probably be the Revs. While they didn't necessarily, walk away cool, and we don't know what's going to happen to them next, they did also cause and help the death of a family head. They managed to escape. They managed to make their presence known, and that's really it. Like, they kind of walked away with their lives. Now, Po Bia only ranks under them. While they did accomplish the goal of Traumary's death, they lost their mothership towards the end. That's the only reason why I put them below the Revs. Next would be Zahard's army. Losing Traumary, losing a family head is a massive L for your military strength. We don't know what the interactions will be between, obviously Robodon at the helm and Zahard. Will he obey? Will he not? Walki Song, who achieved absolutely nothing. While Urek looks good, we get to see his powers. He's cool. He got stopped by Leslek. He didn't prevent Traumary's death. He's an L. And then obviously, Lobopia. Lobopia lost tons of people, tons of their future, and obviously their family heads, so they are the bottom faction right now. So, yeah, guys, that's all I have for the faction part. So let's move on to the end of Season 3. I'm going to talk about how Season 3 wrapped up, what I expect to see in Season 4. That's it, so I'll see you there, guys.